You are watching the Lore Masters, the #1 place for competitive Lorcana content. Now, let's do it.
Hi guys, it's James from the Lore Masters and welcome to our very first deck profile from Rise of the Floodborn. This time we are showing you Ruby Amethyst villains. So as you can kind of see, there's a lot of similarities to Ruby Amethyst control from the first set, but it has a lot of new engines, a lot of new card choices, and a lot of different tricks. So let's swap over to the list view and I'll kind of explain one by one why we play certain things and why we've included things. So let's swap over to the list view now. There we are. Right, so we run 42 characters, 12 songs, and 6 item cards. We run no action cards at all anymore. So let's go through the list one by one. So first up is 4 copies of Maleficent Monstrous Dragon. So it's a 9-drop, 7 power, 5 toughness with 2 lore points. Whenever you play this character, you may banish chosen opposing character. So this was a mainstay from the first Ruby Amethyst control. It's a Dragonfire on a stick, quite a large stick as well. This is the card that is capable of singing Be Prepared in the deck. We don't run any other 7 or 8 drops. So it's quite important that we do play this. However, it's nice to have a banish on a stick as well, just because you develop your board while also getting rid of theirs. So very, very useful card. Okay, so again, another one from the first set. So it's 3-drop Maleficent Sorceress. So she's a 2/2 with 1 lore point. Whenever you play this character, you may draw a card. So this card replaces itself when it comes in and develops your board, so it's very good. It also was very useful to sing Friends on the Other Side, but it has a bit of utility in this deck as well, as you'll kind of see when we get to the songs. So I'll explain that one in a little bit. But yeah, very, very useful card. It's only got better in this set. Okay, so we run 4 copies of the Queen, Wicked and Vain. So she's a 5-drop, 4/5, exert herself to draw a card, 1 lore point. So we do run Shield of Valor still in this deck, or Shield of Virtue, not Shield of Valor. So we can unexert her to draw multiple cards 1 per turn. However, this card is in there because we have a really bad matchup against Discard, and this card is unlimited draw. But we can also do different tricks with it with some of the removal spells, which we will get to in just a moment. But because she's a villain, she is quite important to run the 4 copies. Okay, so again, one of the ones from the first set. So Maui, Hero to All. So 5-drop Inkable, 6/5 with Rush and Reckless. Very useful card. It's huge. There hasn't been a better card printed in the second set. It's going to take a while for us to get a better card than Maui. So yeah, he's in there just because he can run over things. You can use him to sing songs, so the Reckless isn't that annoying or anything like that. So yeah, very, very useful. I think he's going to see play for a long time yet. Okay, so we run 2 copies of Merlin Rabbit. So here's one of the new cards. So he's a 4-drop uninkable, 2/3. When you play this character and when he leaves play, you may draw a card. So he's a guaranteed 2 cards when he enters play. We also have got ways to remove him off the board as well, because we run the Madam Mims. We also run Yzma as well, which we'll see in a moment. So there's lots of kind of little cool tricks you can do to trigger his abilities multiple times. I may up this to 4 copies in the future, but I'm just testing it with 2 copies at the moment because we just don't want to brick with too many uninkables. Okay, so here is the first Madam Mim. So she's a 3-drop inkable, 4/3, with 1 lore point. When you play this character, banish her or return another chosen character of yours to your hand, and it has Rush. So I play this over Rafiki in the deck because Rafiki was uninkable, whereas this is inkable. And we run lots of on-entry abilities that we can abuse with the Madam Mims. So you can play a character on turn 2, and then attack with it or quest with it, and then return it to hand, play this and run over something else. So very, very useful, especially against aggro. But yeah, I really enjoy this card. Much prefer it over Rafiki as well, just because it is inkable. Okay, so we run 4 copies of Madam Mim Snake. So it's a 2-drop 3/3. Again, similar ability to the previous one. Whenever you play this character, banish her or return another chosen character of yours to your hand, 1 lore point. So the whole point is that we play these cards because it bounces our entry effects, so we can reuse them multiple times. But also they are quite aggressively statted cards, especially in the early game. So you can keep up toe-to-toe with aggro. because you can run over the stuff because yours is just better statted than theirs. So very, very useful to have. Another thing is you can, when you bounce something back to your hand, you can always use that card back for ink, so your opponent cannot then just remove it or challenge it or whatever. So very handy against discard as well. Okay, so we run 4 copies of Merlin Goat. So it's a 4-drop inkable for free. And when you play this character and when he leaves play, gain 1 lore. He also quests for 1 lore as well. So together with the Madam Mims and also the Yzma, we get to abuse this card quite a lot. So he's a guaranteed 2 lore when he comes in and when he leaves. If he quests as well, you gain another 1 as well, so that's 3 lore. But you can bounce this card back to your hand and get the lore points as well. Very, very cool card. Amethyst Ruby didn't have a lot of decent 4-drops in the first set, so this has filled that space quite nicely, together with the Rabbit as well. But yeah, if you're using the Madam Mim bounce cards, you should be using the Goat and the Rabbit in some form of numbers. Okay, so here's Yzma, scary beyond all reason. So she's a 6-drop inkable 4/4 with shift 4, but that's not that relevant. We don't play any other Yzmas. 2 lore points, and whenever you play this character, shuffle another chosen character into their player's deck. That player draws 2 cards. So originally when I read this card, I was like, I don't really want to give my opponent 2 cards to remove one of theirs, but you can use it on your stuff too. So if you shuffle back one of the Merlin cards, so either the Goat or the Rabbit, you get to trigger their ability and draw 2 cards as well. If your opponent has got an annoying character you want to get rid of, like Stitch Rockstar for example, you can send it back. Yes, they get to draw 2 cards, but it removes the problem. The 5-drop Mufasa as well from Rise of the Floodborn, you can send that back to deck and it won't trigger. So it has some useful abilities, well, utility should I say. But it is worth mentioning this card is not optional. So if you play this on your board and you only have another character of yours, you have to send that character back to draw 2. If she comes down on her own, you don't have to do that because it chooses another chosen character. But yeah, just bear that in mind when you do put her down. Okay, so another new card, which is Felicia, Always Hungry. So it's a 1-drop inkable 3/1 with Reckless. So the deck needs to play a 1-drop in it because you run the 2-drop Madam Mim Snake, so you need a 1-drop to return. The reason we've chosen this one over something like a 1/3 or a 2/2 1-drop is because this card does challenge a 2-drop, the 5-drop Queen as early as turn 2. So if you are against Amber Steel, and they go turn 1 the 1-drop Queen, follow turn 2 the 5-drop Queen in a shift, and then use it to sing a whole new world, this Felicia can then go into the Queen and defeat it in combat just to get it off the board, so then you're back kind of to an even position with your opponent. So yeah, it is worth playing just for that reason, but yeah, like I say, the 1-drop's in there just so you can bounce it back to the hand for the Madam Mim cards without spending too many resources. Okay, and to the last character is one of the late spoilers from the new set. 6-drop uninkable Lady Tremaine, Imperious Queen. So she's a 3 power, 4 toughness with shift 4. Again, not relevant because we don't play any other Lady Tremaines. 2 lore points, and whenever you play this character, each opponent chooses and banishes one of their characters. So this character is both amazing removal and also not great removal, and I'll explain why. So if your opponent has only got 1 character on their board, it is absolutely amazing because that character can even have ward and this card gets around it. So if you're against a 5-drop Cuzco, which is one of the deck's absolute pain in the arses to defeat, then this card gets rid of it. If your opponent has a big board, they're just going to send one of their weaker characters to get rid of it. But the fact is, it's removal on a body. This only costs 6, and it's worth 2 lore points, so it is worth playing just for that reason. Plus, like I say, it does get rid of annoying evasive cards as well, and ward cards, so it is definitely worth the 4 copies. Right, let's move on to the songs now. So, Friends on the Other Side, so 4 copies of it, one of the best draw cards in the game. So, character cost 3 or more can sing this song for free, draw 2 cards. 90% of the deck can sing this, which includes the Reckless guys as well. Or you can just hardcast it and just draw 2 cards. Most of the time it's used with Maleficent, the 3-drop Maleficent, so you play it and then draw 2 cards from it. But yeah, very, very good card. It's very unlikely to ever see a better draw card anytime soon. So yeah, make sure you play 4 copies. Okay, so 4 copies of Be Prepared, so 7-drop Uninkable Song, banish all characters. This is obviously what still makes it a control deck because it does use as cards, so if your opponent does go super wide, you can use this. Obviously, bear in mind we don't run any cost 7s in the deck. That may change, so I may put Ursula back in the future, we'll see. But at the minute, the only thing that I can sing this card with is the 9-drop Maleficent. But it is worth including in a deck just because if things do get out of control, you can board wipe it. This may go down a few copies, maybe 2 copies, but we'll see. I think it's fine at 4 copies at the moment. Okay, which brings us on to one of the main reasons we're playing villains, is 3-drop Uninkable, the most diabolical scheme. So it is a song card, so a character cost 3 or more can sing this song for free. Banish chosen villain of yours to banish chosen character. Now, the reason why we play this card is because beforehand, Ruby had a real problem with dealing with early aggression. So things like Rockstar Stitch, if they drop it as early as turn 3, for example, you can answer it because Dragonfire is still 2 turns away, and there was no kind of cheap banish cards that you could actually go into and deal with it. So if they did an aggressive start, or you're on the draw, for example, there was no way you were going to be able to match that speed. This card allows you to do so. So you can play a 2-drop villain on turn 2, and then you could hardcast this on turn 3 and get rid of your 2-drop villain to get rid of their Rockstar Stitch in a pinch. You can use the 3-drop Maleficent that you've played on turn 3 to sing this card and also banish herself and banish one of your opponent's cards. But a good proportion of this deck is all villains, so this card will be very live. It just so happens that Ruby Amethyst in general uses a lot of the villain cards in it. But yeah, it's just a nice cheap removal card that you can use as well as play another card on the same turn. So the big issue that Dragonfire had is it would take your whole turn 5, and then you wouldn't be able to do anything else. But with this card, you can play it, you can sing it, you can remove something and play something else that same turn. It allows you just to keep up with the tempo of your opponent. So yeah, very, very useful. Big fan of this card. Okay, so onto the items. So we run still 2 copies of Magic Mirror. So exert it, pay 4 ink, draw a card. We are a control deck still, even though it's not technically called that. We do need to just use all the ink that we build just to draw cards in the late game so we don't run out of resources. If this card isn't useful because the game is too quick, I may end up dropping it for 2 more copies of Merlin Rabbit. But for now, it's quite useful just to keep your hand nice and strong going into the late game, keep it full of removal options. Okay, so we run 2 copies of Shield of Virtue. So 1-drop Uninkable, exert, pay 3 ink, ready chosen character, they can't quest for the rest of this turn. So the main reason we use this is because we use Queen, so we can keep drawing cards with her. It also is to ready our stuff so your opponent cannot challenge it. It is also quite useful for the most diabolical scheme, because you could, for example, quest with one of your villains, pay 3 to activate it with Shield of Virtue, and then use it to sing to nuke itself and one of your opponent's characters as well. It means that you don't have to choose between questing and singing, you can do both. But yeah, a very, very useful utility card. Do recommend still playing a couple of copies of it. Okay, and the last thing is the deck's other win con, which is the Sorcerer Spellbook. So it's a 3-drop inkable item with exert itself, pay 1 ink, gain 1 lore. So previously, when you were playing Ruby Amethyst Control, you would have to fight for the board, especially in a mirror match. And once you've established, you then can quest. But generally, because Ruby Amethyst plays so much removal, sticking a body on board to quest was very difficult. It often went to deck out. That shouldn't be the case nowadays, because you can just use all your resources to banish all your opponent's cards, and then keep ticking this up every single turn, and eventually you will win. So you don't have to worry about sticking characters. Honestly, they could be removed every single turn. It doesn't matter, as long as you're paying the 1 ink to keep ticking this up. Even if you've got multiple on board, you can tick it up multiple times. It's just the deck's second win con. So there should be no reason why we are going to deck out. Right, that is the deck. So hope you've enjoyed it, guys. Be sure to subscribe to the channel and give us a like as well. We always appreciate it, because we have got more decks coming, and we're also going to be playing this just so you can kind of see it in action. So yeah, see you later, guys. See ya.